to look back at the history of how we got here, I was thinking about this for the first couple hours before this happened. And the whole thing that we have, some people have seen the video that got posted today. I'm going to get to that in a minute. But the whole reason that we got here was because I followed my intuition and I moved to things that were not comfortable. And I'm going to tell a story about how we did all of this. And so back in November of 2020, it was me and one employee here at Refine Labs. And I wanted to do, well, I was working with, maybe we had 3 or 4 customers at that time. And I was telling them that they should do a live event, physical event strategy. And I kept telling them what they should do. And the main reason was because I was inside of their Salesforce and just watched how much money they were spending on trade shows. And I was like, please stop spending $500,000 to do this stuff and do these things instead. And nobody did it. And then I looked in the mirror and I said, maybe I should start taking my own advice. If I think that these people should do it, maybe I should be doing it. And so we had this crazy idea that we would get some people together and do an event and show people what good looked like. And so that event was going to be in Miami. In November, we had the decision. I got all of the things that we needed to do. So we had like the event space, we had the videographers ready. Everything was ready for me to make a decision. And I sat on that decision for more than 4 weeks because I was scared. Because I had one employee and 3 customers. And I was like, if we go and I fly all these people out here for the videographers from Hollywood and we get this event space and I get other people here and we promote the event and Josh Braun drives 3 hours across South Florida to be here and nobody shows up, 1, that's going to be embarrassing. 2, I'm going to waste like $20,000. And so I was scared. And then I said, we just got to do this. I got to stop talking about it and I got to start being about it. I got that from one of my customers today. That was really awesome, that little line. And so we committed to doing it. And then we started to execute on that event. So the event was in Miami. And while I had this expensive videographer crew coming up from Hollywood to film this event, I was like, what else might I be able to do while these people are here to make the most of my investment on that? And so I was searching around my LinkedIn connections inside of South Florida, and I stumbled upon this guy named Gaetano Dinardi that had demand gen in his title. I didn't even know who Gaetano was at that point. I knew of him. He was a connection of me, but I'd never talked to him. We had never had a conversation, like any of that. And I literally just hit him up cold on LinkedIn DM. And imagine how weird this must have felt for him, where I was like, hey man, I'm going to be in Miami next week. You want to shoot like a video? You want to shoot a video with me talking about demand gen? And so he, honestly, it was awesome. He said he was available. He said, yes, we worked around the schedule. He came and we shot that video. I had no expectations. I had no idea what the guy believed in, and it was awesome. And we titled that video State of Demand Gen 2020. And we put that thing out and it got a lot of traction, and we continued to do events. I did one in LA, and then the pandemic started to happen, right? So our events were canceled. I had just gotten back from vacation in St. Martin on March 17th. And I'm like, oh my God, are we going to lose all our customers? What is going to happen? That's really the things that were going through my mind. And I wrote down I looked at the notebook because it was on March 17th. On March 17th, I pulled out the notebook and I looked at it and I wrote some stuff on a page to myself. And it was interesting to look back on it. And the title of the page said, "The next 12 months can change my life." And then I wrote all of the things that I wanted to do. And so then the world wasn't, completely over. Our customers were staying, things were okay. I attended a community Zoom like this that was hosted by Justin Welch and a couple other people called Thursday Night Sales. I think a lot of you people now know Thursday Night Sales, but I was at one of the first episodes that they did there. And I was just observing. I knew Justin. We had just done an event. I wanted to support him. I wanted to see what it was all about. And I got off of that event and I called Gaetano. And I said, I was just on one of these events and I see people doing these events for sales, but nobody's doing it well for marketing. Do you want to do this event with me? And he said yes. And then the next week, we hosted our first Imagine Live. I think we had like 25 people here, and then quickly moved that into a podcast. And the people that saw the video that we posted on the company page today was a recording of what the first episode looked like. And if you saw, the video quality was terrible. I looked awful. I was using AirPods as my microphone. Like there was a lot that had to be improved, but we got started. And the point of this, and then we were able to continue to build on it, following intuition, following what people liked, listening to all of you, and then building the podcast, and then continuing to go from there. And the point of this whole conversation is literally my mission is to just inspire one person, whether they're on this Zoom or whether they're listening to thousands of people that will listen to this afterwards, to just get started on something that makes you feel uncomfortable. I think a lot of people get put up whatever excuses like I did. What if I waste this money? What if people don't show up? What if all these things happen? Instead of looking at it like, what if a lot of people show up? What'll happen after that? What things could go right if I do this? Even if it doesn't work out, what could I learn? And so just my mindset on doing things that are uncomfortable have changed a lot. And if you've noticed as this has progressed over the past year, things get a lot better as you do it. I'm a much better speaker. The video quality is because I practice it all the time. The video quality is great. The podcast production quality continues to get better. Not that I even really care about it that much. At the beginning, are you providing good information to people? And then you can figure out the quality later, because the information is what people come for, not the production quality. And that's the signal that you need to get. And so that's the opening start. It's been a really awesome journey. I appreciate all of you coming. The people that show up here and there and get the things that they need are awesome. The people that show up every week and ask awesome questions are awesome. The people that came for 2 months and then started their own company, have never showed up again, is awesome. Love that. Like if you have the things that you need to go and do stuff, then go and do it. And then if you need stuff, if you have questions, you need stuff, then come back. And so, yeah, I appreciate all of you. It's been an awesome year. A lot of, it's been a really challenging year for a lot of people, but I think when we look back, a lot of good things have come out of it too. A lot of great things at my company have happened for this reason. Megan would never have joined this company if the pandemic didn't happen. I know that for sure. Perhaps other people at the company wouldn't have had that either. I know several other senior people in my company were laid off due to COVID because their company was impacted, and now they work here. And so, I know that there was a lot of challenging things happening, but if you change your mindset to what is good, I think that's a good way to look at it too.
That was awesome, Chris. And I think the only thing I want to add is so much of what makes this whole thing great is each and every one of you. Chris touched on that, but some of my favorite moments are like fun that we have in the chat. Thanks to Matthew for being the great host, bringing you guys on to share what's going on and your questions. And I feel like I have a unique view, Ashley, and am able to interact with you guys a lot, in the chat and while we're on the show. And it's been a ton of fun, and no better way to spend a Tuesday night. So that said, we have a few community members that we really wanted to give an opportunity for them to come on and just share their story for a few minutes. So we have 3 loyal DGLers that we'll bring on momentarily to start. And then after, we will transition to the AMA. Got a bunch of great questions submitted in advance, and I see a lot of you are here, but go ahead and drop any new ones in the chat, and we'll bring you on, and we'll go as long as we want to tonight. Mm-hmm. We'll have some fun. All right, so first I'd like to welcome your chat host, the one and only Matthew. I'm bringing you on.
Who's been with us since day one.
The beginning.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
It's crazy.
I still keep coming back. I have no idea why. I know why, but oh man, gosh. So I'll turn back the clock. It was 2019, I first saw Chris. This is way before he had 50,000 followers, and he was just doing his thing on LinkedIn. And I read the guy, and I was like, this is the smartest guy I've read in marketing, probably since I first got into the profession. I was like following Marcus Sheridan, who does a great job. And I saw Chris, and I was looking to level up and grow myself professionally. I saw Chris, and I was like, this is definitely the way forward for me as a professional. This is exactly what I believe in. I was in a rut professionally, running a lot of lead gen off of ebooks, getting a lot of downloads and not getting a ton of traction on it. And so I saw Chris's method and was like, this is definitely it for me. Went to the first Demand Gen Live. Talked about, him and Gaetano talked about doing things that don't scale, things that you can't measure, like starting a podcast or doing paid social with distributing top funnel content, stuff like that. And so I, through Chris, met MJ, who just started at Refine yesterday. And MJ and I talked on LinkedIn and randomly decided to start a podcast. We had never met or talked before, ever, until that conversation came up. We were both niched in the industrial space. And so we started our podcast, which we have our 1-year episode next week, which is the Industrial Marketing Show. Right as that podcast happened, my salary got cut 15% because of COVID. And so I was really having trouble, honestly, single source income, making ends meet. So I did thought leadership on LinkedIn, did the podcast, did the micro content. And then I got noticed by a startup company in Atlanta called Gravy. Some people may know of it. And Casey Graham, who was the CEO of Gravy, reached out to me and asked me to apply for a senior role at his company. And so I went through that process, and that alone increased my salary by 50%. And so I was able to do things for my family that I never imagined possible, and make things happen for them that were difficult before. And honestly, Chris, I mean, I'm trying not to get all Oprah on you and shit, but like, dude, you've changed the trajectory of my career, and I can't thank you enough for that. I mean, everyone needs like a guide, and you've been mine through this. And now I'm head of client service at an agency that works in industrial, and killing it there. I'm building my team, and we're trying to be a minified version of what you guys do. But dude, you've single-handedly just through your guidance and teachings gotten me to exactly where I'm at today. So just super thankful. That's part of why I keep coming back, man. I'm just so appreciative of you.
It makes me super happy, man. I'm tearing up over here. That's awesome.
Of course.
And Matthew, like, give yourself some credit. I think you
executed.
You executed, you showed up, you kept going. And so those were amazing words, and kudos to you, and congratulations for all your success. It's been really, really awesome to see. And I personally have loved getting to know you as well, on and off DGL.
Likewise. Appreciate it.
That was great. All right, Charlie, you have a hard act to follow. A more recent loyal DGL crew member calls in the middle of the night. Always ask the questions that people have at top of their mind, but don't ask out loud. Charlie, I just needed you. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, well, thanks so much. Yeah, I was getting quite emotional, actually. Honestly, I feel like the guidance I get from you guys goes so much beyond just becoming better at marketing. Honestly, it does feel like so much more than that. It feels like such a community. Yeah, I've only been coming to these for maybe a couple of months, actually. It feels like so much longer because the change has been like phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. I think you guys have got to consider the fact that like demand generation isn't a thing here in the UK. Like I had never heard the term before. I heard Chris say it. I saw a LinkedIn video of him saying it, and it was like, psh, I was like, wow, you know, it's like I'd been blind and my eyes were suddenly open and I could see. I'd been studying a master's degree at one of like the top unis in the UK in marketing. Never heard the term. You know, so yeah, I mean, that philosophy of generating demand and not leads changed the way I thought about my career and my work and everything. I've been sitting in HubSpot thinking that automating the CRM was going to suddenly make people want the product I was trying to market. And, you know, I asked Chris and he sort of was nudging me away from this, right? Like saying, think about it. Like, how are you going to make people actually want your product? Where are you like leading them? What are you communicating to them? So I think that really like led me to start to think about content marketing, and I actually like led me to change and apply for a new job. So I just started a new job in B2C, like law tech role, just to be back on social, closer to like people and get back to those roots. And that was very much from like your influence. I started a podcast again from your influence. I think like you said something that really caught my attention. You said hiring a salesperson will scale with the number of salespeople you build in, but your impact to your content marketing scales with your audience. And like, yeah, I started a podcast, I think finally, and the impact of that on my LinkedIn's been crazy, like just so good. Like people messaging me from school, from university, just seeing my content, like it went so much beyond the work. It went into my relationships, you know, like finally, just, yeah, like I got so much confidence from speaking of you guys, like, and that was just essential to me getting my first freelance client. Like I've been just going on about stuff you've been saying to my little brother and my dad passed something on to someone else, and then they got in touch, said they wanted to work with me. And I just started a freelance agency called the Demand Growth Collective, demandgrowth.co. Sorry to plug it. But like you look at the website, it's all just Chris Walker quotes, basically. Yeah.
Love
so,
it.
you know, thank you so much. I'd still be sitting on HubSpot if it wasn't for you, you know.
Nice, man. Thank you. That makes me happy. Glad to have you here every week.
That was awesome, Charlie. The question that's on my mind is, how are you doing with Instagram? I know last week you were, this is your new nemesis.
The TikTok now?
It's been difficult. Like I've actually got ADHD, so I can be a bit hyperactive. And I went to my boss and I was like, you've got me sitting on the most distracting thing ever invented. And like every 5 seconds, the video flips to a new one every 15 seconds. And I'm like, oh my God. But no, I'm loving it because it's actually got me back to thinking about demand. I'm not thinking about complex reports, big words, software. I'm thinking about like what people think and feel and how to communicate to them to leverage their emotional feelings. Yeah.
No, that's awesome, Charlie. We love having you as part of the community. Thank you for coming when it's so late for you. And, you know, sorry about the whole time thing. Hopefully the world sorts that out in the future. Awesome. You have a question you submitted, so we'll bring you back on in a bit to ask your question once we get to the next segment. Carl, I know we wanted to have you on to share your story as well. Would love to hear a few words.
For sure. Hey everybody. So a little bit of background. I came from B2B. I did B2B from 2012, 2017, did B2B supply chain, actually ran my own B2B SaaS, and heavily a performance-driven marketer, right? Ate, drank, taught the HubSpot Kool-Aid, like get leads, get MQLs. That was the thing, right? And, you know, and same people, right? Marcus Sheridan, listen to like Joe Pulizzi, Robert Rose, and those guys. So 2012, 2017, and then 2017 to 2020, went back to B2C, went to B2C. And then when I came back, I think I was like, okay, what's new in B2B? Because it's been 3 years, and looking around, it was all the same. I was like, it was the same things that I was doing back in 2012 to 2017, right? It's like ebooks. I was like, this can't be right because people have changed, and like people have, it's 2020, like it's not 2012. So I met Guy Towno in LA back, I don't know, 2016, whenever. And then I saw him on LinkedIn, and then I saw your podcast, and I listened to one, and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's the smartest guy in the room, because that makes a lot of sense. And I just kept listening. And then the new B2B SaaS company I'm with, luckily they gave me a lot of like leeway, and I was gonna apply the same kind of HubSpot kind of deal, right? Looking at MQLs, starting doing Facebook lead gens. But then it was like, hey, you know what? We'll switch out. We'll go full in. And I don't know if you guys, anybody know who Rex Grossman is, but he has a quote. He's like, sorry, fuck it, I'm going deep. So we just like, you just go all in. And honestly, that is the greatest impact, not just for the company, but for me, because to understand the concepts, I think I said this in a previous episode, it's like understand the concepts of creating demand, capture demand, and understanding high intent, low intent, and not making marketing so complex. And that's what I used to do. I used to do all these multi-attribution reports, trying to find those percentage influences. figuring out from back to front, like, okay, how many MQLs do I need? How many SQLs, like all that stuff. And once I made it simple, like I just have to share, like our Q4 numbers this year blew everything out of the water. We're talking like we had 121% of our pipeline targets, 105% of our SAL and SQO targets. But the one number that I was so happy of is that we came up with a demo request number based on that backward calculation. We only needed a third of our demo request number to hit all of our numbers, which means we brought in highly qualified, high intent people using the exact tactics that and the strategies that, you know, all of you here have bought into. And I can say, yeah, it's everyone at my company, they're talking create demand, capture demand, like that language is flowing through. Like 2 weeks from now, I have a presentation to our board of directors that want to understand what we're doing to do this, because they're seeing the results and it's out of this world. And not saying that we're the cause of this, because there's a lot of work in brand, there's a lot of work with our BDRs and a lot of work with our sales teams, but like this has led to significant impact and it's just changed the way I see marketing as well. So thank you everyone here. It's like I keep saying, it's like this is like the B2B cheat code. So I don't know anybody else who listens to this, and yeah, I'll passionately argue everything that you guys talk about here. It's amazing.
Wow, Carl, that was pretty perfect. I might be calling you for a case study.
He's not even a customer and he's crushing it out there. That's awesome. And that it's just the truth. Like nobody that's listening to this needs to be a customer of ours to do all of these things. It just requires commitment and effort and executive buy-in and curiosity to continue to learn, right? Because like we give the high level strategies here. We even give a lot of the tactical things. But Carl, you'll know, like you need to get in there and do it a lot to really know how to do it.
Yep. And what I think the really cool part is we're getting the agency that was with our company. They're like, we didn't know that this work. We were so skeptical, and now we're applying your principles to like our other clients just because we see the results. And now it's like, how much do you want to put in awareness? We're like, we decreased our generic paid search. We decreased all that. It's all about understanding, creating demand and capturing demand. And they're using the language, and it's awesome because we can see it permeate through the organization. And even like consulting, like companies that I consult with, like it's there, and it's so easy to speak about rather than trying to speak about all these different like attribution models and like it's just so much. Yeah, if you keep marketing simple, it'll come back tenfold.
It really is simple. I got a question for you that's going to help a lot of people. How long did it take you to really feel that it was working from when you started to when you felt that?
It took about 3 or 4 months. Like it wasn't overnight. And luckily, if I had just been a performance marketer, if I didn't have the background in content and understood that content takes at least 12 to 18 months, if I didn't have that, within the first month, I'd be like, oh, this isn't working, I'm bailing. But because I knew, like, sometimes you just have to have faith. You can't like, there's some things like you can't do. And like story back in 2014, I launched my very first podcast. It was called the Square One Supply Chain Podcast. And literally I didn't know what I was doing. All I did was talk with this supply chain expert, and we talked about football for like first 10 minutes. And then we talked about supply chain. I didn't know anything about supply chain. All I know is he knew everything, and we just had a good conversation about it. But that led to so much results, and I didn't understand why, but now I get why that but you couldn't measure that. You can't measure, just be like how many people downloaded the podcast. That doesn't mean anything to what the results were. So, but now I understand, like that was the connecting dots. Like that's why it worked, because we were creating demand. It just made sense.
Got a really funny story. When I figured this out, it was somewhere between 2014 and 2015. And what I was doing is I was trying to sell stuff on Instagram. and I was running direct response performance marketing ads on Instagram to sell like this $60 blanket or something. And I would run heavy on the ads on Saturday mornings. I don't know. It was just like my time. So probably because I could monitor it really closely. I had a job at the time, and I would run them from like 9 a.m. to noon. And then I would assess the sales, and I would watch all of the clicks go to Google Analytics, and I'd watch some people drop it in the cart, and then they would fall off and stuff like that. And then I would watch people that were not attributed to the ads come through organic search and then buy the stuff. And that was the first time I saw that like paid social actually drives organic conversions in a B2C model. And it's the exact same thing that happens in B2B. And there was no tracking to it. It was just purely that the system was simple and I was pulling all the levers, and it was very easy to tell what was happening.
And I bet you as a performance marketer, I would have tried to backtrack through and be like, why didn't this happen? Why did this happen? And I would have had a way different perspective on it, which it just doesn't, like I can see it just doesn't pan out, but people still keep trying to do that model over and over and over. Not saying that it'll work, but just by virtue of you're just hitting so many people that eventually someone is going to buy.
Cool. Carl, appreciate the story. That was great. So happy to hear about your success. Yeah, love hearing that stuff. Now, shall we transition to some questions? Thanks, everyone. That was awesome. Really appreciate you all sharing those things.
Yeah, thank you, Carl. That was perfect. Really appreciate you, Matthew, Charlie, and Carl for sharing your stories tonight. That was perfect and amazing from each of you. And thanks to everyone on the call. We'll transition into kind of our normal AMA style. And David, I have to bring you on first because I felt like your question that you sent in advance is like the perfect question to kick off the AMA with. So,
okay. So, hey, Chris, how you doing?
Hey, doing great, David.
Somewhere on your computer, there is video footage of you interviewing me from your couch.
I think it's on YouTube. I think it's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube. You actually publish it. Okay, all right. So, my name is David Feinstein. You want to search for a different name? Okay. So my question, in this last year, right, as you think about the things that you've been doing, have done, and so forth, what do you find? I've got two questions. So the first one is, what are you doing a lot less of? What are you finding that you've kind of straying away from, not resonating right now? In marketing
or yes, business or
in your marketing work, you know, as you for yourself, your clients, what's wherever you kind of like strayed away?
It's weird because I take this approach no matter what, right? And so like it's not, most of the stuff wasn't in there to begin with. And I said this on a podcast today when somebody asked me, it's like I only focus on the things that are the most important, and then I forget everything else. We spend no time on SEO. We spend like no time on trade shows. We spend no time on content syndication, all the things that SaaS companies do to kind of like check the box. It's just like, get those out of my face so that we can do podcasts, we can do LinkedIn, and we can do them very well. I think one of the misses that a lot of companies have is that they would never go deep enough to know that something like this can generate the results that it can. They never get deep enough inside of any individual channel to really feel that stuff. Like I know how much Facebook works because I spent hundreds or probably thousands of hours doing it from 2014 to 2016. And most companies never get in that level, and then trying to make it work, like running a case study, running this top of funnel blog, trying product stuff, running paid PR, like. And so I just think that, and a lot of the model that we run today was the infrastructure was built during those couple of years where I tested things. And so I'm trying to think about where we moved off from recently, but like we had never started on it. Like the things that we did from the beginning, we did, and the things that we are not doing, we just didn't do it all.
Okay, all right. So then part two then is, as you kind of look at what's going on around you, what are you curious to explore and experiment with next? What seems to be, ooh, I have a feeling about this. This fits what I'm doing here. What's next?
At the moment, I'm obsessed with trying to figure out how B2B companies can actually execute influencer marketing. And so I know that people are trying it. I know that LinkedIn just wrote something about how it's going to be great, which is going to drive a bunch of people to do it in shitty ways. And so like, I think that the wave is coming. We've been doing this for more than a year now. And so just figuring out how to construct it, how to identify the people, how to do it in a way that's authentic, how to get the mindset of the executives inside of those companies to be okay with paying someone $10,000 and not getting some transactional value out of it in a direct way, like leads or something like that. There's mechanics and like have someone come and speak at your event, and if you have to pay them money, pay them money. A ton of companies already do that. Like that is a form of influencer marketing. I'm trying to figure out what the next several layers are underneath it. User generated content, how you could give your product away to the 10 most influential people in your space. I talked to a company today that was going to take me up on that idea, was not based in the US, was trying to break into the US, and their initial go to market was to identify the 10 people that have the most influence for their buyer and give their $150,000 a year software to them for free as a way to get in. And most executives would look at that and be like, oh, that's $1.5 million down the drain. And what they didn't realize is they have 0 customers in the US already, and they weren't going to win those people anyway. And so that's one that I'm really interested in sort of like tinkering with and figuring out. And then the next one is trying to figure out how to get companies that are not committed to the things that we do right now to what is the unlock to get them to move to a level of commitment. If you sell to CTOs, how do you convince an executive team that your CTO needs to do what I'm doing right now?
I think a lot of people would like you to figure that one out.
And it may not be, it might be wishful thinking. It might be like selection bias, where the people that do it, and the ones that don't. But those are some of the things that I'm, top of mind for me, some of the things on the fringe. And to be honest, like I talk about going deep in channels. I know that we haven't fully gotten deep in LinkedIn yet. Like I know that there's a ton of room to keep figuring out how to run paid LinkedIn. We're ramping up budgets. The disparity between the prices between Facebook and LinkedIn are getting tighter. So LinkedIn becomes more attractive in that instance. We need to figure out how to get the reach up. We need to figure out measurement a little bit more. We need to figure out creative a little bit more about what are the right things to put in there, how does thought leadership perform versus like bottom of the funnel product animation, things like that. Like the mechanics inside of Facebook are crystal clear to me. The LinkedIn mechanics, I think there's a little bit more room, and also to understand what the full scalability is. In small audiences, you hit saturation way faster on LinkedIn than you would on Facebook. And so I'm trying to figure out, one, like what is the scalability, and two, what are the operational requirements in a company if you were going to run, like I talked to a company today that wants to run can only sell to 200 accounts in the US, and they want to run 1-to-1 inside of LinkedIn. And so what is the process of how to do that operationally? Because it's not the budget that's the problem. It's not the ad strategy is the problem. It's how do you put enough good content that's matched for that exact company, or that exact 1-to-few play, or that exact 1-to-200 move, to what is the sequence of events and what does the company need in order to be successful in that model? Because I watch companies fumble around trying to implement APM strategies in that way. And I just think there's a huge opportunity there for our business.
Thank you. I just want to say, I've been coming to these for almost a year, maybe, I don't remember.
Pretty much.
I first joined, but I've been doing demand gen all my career, which at this point is beginning to add up. And so much of what you share, you've put voice to things that I knew but couldn't articulate, which is interesting given the age disparity. So thank you. I would come back from a trade show and say that was a fundamental waste of X number of $1,000 compared to how many people I could get from a webinar. I don't want to do trade shows anymore. We have to do trade shows. So not to pick on trade shows specifically, they have a purpose, perhaps in a different way. But so much of what you've helped everyone bring to the market, if you will, to bring to the market of ideas, has just been so borne out in reality in my experience. So I enjoy these sessions. I enjoy what you share. And I'm very glad that you're finding a wide audience, a deserved audience, and a wide following of people who are here and who respond to your comments and thoughts on LinkedIn.
Yeah, it's great to have you here, David. And I have a little story about like my ability to communicate these things. And when I say this, some people are taken aback, but in order for me to figure these things out, and in order for me to figure out how to communicate these things to executives initially, I put myself in a position where I could get fired at least once a month, because you need to communicate at that level in order to have the chance to do the things, to learn the things that you need to know in order to keep going. And so are there companies where the environment is set up where you can innovate completely? 100%, but I would say a majority, 95% or more, are not. Like, if you want to get this done, you're going to have to do things like that. And it was tough. But I learned the things that I needed to learn. And then I started communicating them both on LinkedIn with a lot of companies. Now I talk to hundreds of companies every month at the executive level, and I understand what they're doing. And so the volume of the conversations has accelerated my ability to communicate with it, because it's very clear when it resonates and when it doesn't. And I just have rapid practice. And so that's how I got here initially. But going through those 2 years gave me the confidence to even do a lot of the things right now. And I think a lot of people, for whatever reason, their life situation, they have a family, they, can't get fired, they don't have the courage, there's whatever it is. And I totally get that, right? Like, I was just in a different position in my career, in my life, that I was, able to do that. But it gave me the kind of like the up to keep moving. And so for people that are working, because I get that comment a lot, actually, they're like, I was thinking those things, but I couldn't say it that clearly. At this point, it's the practice.
Not everyone has the opportunity to be able to craft their future the way that some people can. So
Totally.
You need to recognize that not everyone, people might have the heart and the willingness to do it, but not the opportunity.
100%.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. Really appreciate it.
Great to see you.
Thank you, David. It was a great question, and really appreciate your kind words. Love seeing you every week. All right, got a couple more questions submitted. Thomas, I wanted to bring you on next. Thomas Patterson, I'm going to unmute you. You submitted a question in advance. We'd love to have you on live and ask your question live.
Yes, I did.
What's up,
sorry,
Thomas?
it's a bit rainy down here.
Is this your first time here? I don't recognize the name.
I've been listening basically on YouTube for a bit, and sometimes
Cool.
try and tune in. But yeah,
Great to
first time
have you
asking
here.
questions.
Yeah.
So it's sort of connected to that commitment question that you kind of covered, but I'm a freelance content writer, and some of my clients are still using, the gated ebook leads approach.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want to do is try and influence them to move away from that and more to the brand building activity, like going a bit deeper on LinkedIn organic, having those videos and discussions and podcasts potentially. So yeah, how do I, as an outside resource, try and influence them,
I have the answer for you, my friend, because I was in this position 18, maybe 24 months ago. The way that you do this is that you communicate the things that you believe in to the world, which attracts people that believe in the things that you believe in. So instead, my job over the past 24 months is not like at the beginning, I had 4 customers. MJ was one of them, but there was other ones too. And my job was not necessarily to convince the people that I worked with right then to do the things that they didn't want to do. It was to put out information that I believed in to attract people that already thought that way. And so you can try to, change the entire marketing strategy of your current customers, or you can keep doing the thing that you're delivering to the current customers, and in parallel attract companies that want to do it the way that you think that it should be done. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing to consider is to partner up with somebody that does other parts of the system so that you can deliver a complete package versus just one component of the system. is another thing to think about. Both ways can work, right? You could go into companies that already believe in what you're doing and let you write the content in the way that you want. What I like to do is I like to have a say in the content. I don't write it. I don't pretend to be an expert in my customers, right? But I want to have a say in the content and the format and the way that it looks and things like that. And that I want to handle all of the distribution, because the distribution is a massive piece of the puzzle to this being successful, and a place where a lot of companies get it wrong. And so you might want to think about, how do I partner with somebody where I'm the content person and they're the distribution person? And then you kind of have the secret weapon.
Yeah, got it. Amazing. No, makes a lot of sense. It's just, yeah, as you say, more about working with the people that want to do the things that you want to do.
And it doesn't happen overnight, man. Like,
Yeah.
it really doesn't. I've like, it feels like yesterday where I was trying to get someone to, ungate their ebook. Like, it hasn't been that long. It takes time, but like, if you want this to be, your career or your business or, those types of things, then just know what you're going after long term, and then just keep your eye on that, and then work through the things. It's a process to get there. But yeah, the unlock is truly talking about the things that you believe companies should be doing. Oftentimes what I would do is I would have a conversation with a company about, hey, like, I know that you like need all these MQLs, but look, I just went through the data and they literally have driven one customer so far this year, and it's July. And so, and I continue to spend $50,000 a month promoting it. And I don't think that we should do it because it's not a good business decision. And they said no. And then I would go back and I would write a post explaining the exact discussion where if I had time to thoughtfully write 1,200 characters to try and convince this executive that what they're doing is not smart, what would I write? And then I would just write it, and inevitably, like, sometimes they would see it. Not one single time did I ever get called out, because I speak in enough generalities that nobody would know. And I would just write about why, when you're winning 0.05% of your ebooks and it's costing you this much, and you calculate CAC and how much wasted time and what else you could be doing, And ironically, a ton of other companies were doing that too and getting the same result. And then they came to me to try and help them fix it. You know what I mean? So that's what I would recommend.
Amazing. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Thomas. Great to have you on the show. Thanks for coming in tonight. All right. Our favorite Charlie had some great questions submitted in advance that I think a lot of people would have. So you had a few. So take us through as I source our next batch from the chat.
Sure. Hey.
Hey.
Cool. Yeah, sorry, my Wi-Fi went down. I was frantically trying to get it back up, but
you're here now.
Just in time.
I know. So my questions are, yes, I guess slightly different. I don't know if they've been asked before, but I had 3 questions, which I guess kind of overlap. I think the first one was what you look for when you're hiring at Refine Labs. I think perhaps particularly for the Director of Demand Gen role. I'd love to hear about that. And then I guess do you want to go through the follow-up questions now, or should I? Yeah,
let's just take it one at a time, because it sounds like you have several, and I tend to if we get to the third question, I've already forgotten the first one. So we'll start here. So what we look for a Director of Demand Gen at Refine Labs, our hiring profile is pretty specific. For the most part, they should already be a Director of Demand Gen, or at least a senior manager at a B2B SaaS company that's Series B or greater. The people in our company that are leading demand strategies and helping our customers execute those should have experience working in that exact type of company, and they should know what it feels like, and they should know what questions get asked, and they should have probably presented at a board meeting, or knows how to influence a CMO, and understands the requirements of a sales team, and understands how to work with a product team, and understands how to build creative. They need to have all of those skills. We're not hiring and then training for those. I'm looking for people that already have all of those, the skills and experience. So that's one. You can't teach that overnight. And so does it make it harder for us to hire? 100%. Does it make the quality of our people and the quality of the results for our customers better? Absolutely. The next thing I look for is like attitude, mainly attitude. Like, is this person going to be good to work with, and injecting them into the team? Are they going to add things that help the rest of us get better? I am consistently amazed every week at just the sheer talent and quality of the people, but sometimes makes me more happy is the attitude of all of the people here, about how positive, optimistic, great teammates, like things that are intangible in my view. I'm really proud of that. The next thing is their ability to look through and analyze pipeline and make strategic decisions. Like, a lot of marketers have never been in Salesforce. And so we spend time in Salesforce with these people and figure out, can they look at the pipeline by lead, and then slice by lead source, and slice by stage date, and slice by, win rate in the funnel, and make strategic decisions about what to do next is a huge part of it. And I think a missing piece for a lot of marketers. I interact with a ton of marketers that have never been in Salesforce and spent all their time in Marketo. There is nothing valuable in Marketo if you're a marketer. You need to be in Salesforce to see anything that's meaningful to do your job better. So that's another component of it that I think is interesting. And then lastly, like the last thing that we look for is typically the people that want to work here have run the MQL model and know how badly it works, or how badly it doesn't work. And so most of those people are attracted here because at the moment, their executives are forcing them to generate 5,000 MQLs a month, and they're watching it inside of Salesforce because they know how to analyze the pipeline, and they see how bad it is, and they know that there are better things to do and they can't do them, which attracts them here. And so just having a experience with the old model, and some of the people that have worked here took the podcast and started to do it, the information in there, and changed their company and saw it start to work, and then wanted to work here because they realized that they're going to learn a lot here. And so just the bought into the mission and the philosophy, I think is a given for any company, but it's something that we really look for here. I don't know, Megan, do you have anything to add? Those are the things that come to mind initially.
Yeah, I think what we find too is that people that are either already plugged into the community or to the podcast or on LinkedIn, that's a common trend. And I think they have an opportunity to get to know Chris and the other people on the team. And that really goes a long way. And I would second a lot of the intangibles. I think the optimism, the attitude, willingness to come in at the stage that we're at and help us build something. All of those are keys to success. And I'm really proud. Every single member of our team is like the highest caliber talent. We're building such an awesome team, and I'm personally super grateful that I get to work with everyone every day.
Cool. Well, yeah, I think I always imagine that you guys have an amazing office culture. If it's anything like the vibes on the podcast. I think so. Like to come back on this, it kind of follows into my follow-up questions, which is that, like, yeah, I sort of said in my intro thing, but demand gen is not a term that's used in the UK. I never seen any job postings or heard anyone ever talk about being a UK-based demand gen marketer. We tend to use growth as the terminology. Like all my jobs have been as a growth hacker. And I feel like there is an overlap here. Like you were saying, you're moving away from the lead gen model. Like that's inherently being more full funnel. You're not getting to an MQL and stopping. You're actually being revenue accountable. You're looking in Salesforce. I guess bringing that into my two kind of questions. Well, the two questions were, what advice would you go back and give to your 24-year-old self when you're younger, or, you know, when you were just kind of starting out? And the second question was, like, at what point should an aspiring T-shaped marketer stop trying to go for breadth and start trying to then specialize in, right? If I can then bring this back to the preface I said about growth hacking, like it's a bit of a paradox for me because my new role is as a content marketer, but so much of what I've been training myself to be doing is developing technicality and full funnel specializations, which is what we would call being a growth hacker. So I guess to throw that back at you, like, you know, if you were my age, would you try to start being T-shaped, or would you still keep trying to play all of those cards at the same time?
Yeah, it's a good question. So first off, just to address like growth marketing, demand gen, revenue marketing, I'm sure that someone would come up with some nuances inside of them, but they all mean the same thing. It's basically just doing marketing that drives pipeline and revenue. Like that's really all that it is. So I find the other ones to sort of be semantics. If you post the job, it will attract different people. So that's something for the people listening afterwards, not necessarily for you, Charlie, to think about. Like, we changed the job titles slightly on our LinkedIn job ads and get significantly different quality of people with different skills based on the title of the job, with nothing else changed. And so now to move into your question, I believe that the T-shaped marketing model might be outdated. And so like when I started to figure this stuff out, I had a lot of foundation. This is like 2015. I had a lot of foundation in talking to customers, building products, looking at P&Ls, trying to increase gross margin, like that, building business cases about whether or not we're going to build products, working with engineering. That was my background up until 2015, 16. Right. And so that I think is a really interesting thing for a lot of people that are listening to this to try and go and figure out. Not necessarily in a full-time job, but you can do a lot of those things, and then it helps you do demand or growth for sure. And then when I moved into this role, they hired me as a segment manager for one segment of their company, this venture funded medical device company. I was a marketing manager for one of their segments, and to be frank, it was their least important, like the one that they considered the least important. And 6 months into working there, I changed my entire job description and I built their demand engine. Right. Like, and so I had a marketing manager job that was supposed to do sales enablement and working with the sales team and doing sales training and, you know, running webinars. Like, that was the job that they had spec'd for me. And I got in there and I just changed the entire job. And then when I was building all of these things, I did it all of myself, which is why I have such a breadth and depth. I think that the misconception here is that you can't do both. You can absolutely do both. You can have deep knowledge in a lot of different functional areas inside of marketing, and you don't need to just focus on one. And so my recommendation is to, and I didn't know this when I did it, but when I look back, I know it now. It's like, for the people that are out there, it's to find the right vehicle to get into, aka find the right company to work in that gives you all of the opportunities to learn. And then it's your job to craft your role based on what's most important and tied back to business outcomes, and then go and do it. And so I'm not sure if I answered you. Like, that would be the recommendation for somebody that's 24. It's one, you got to find the right company with the right leadership and the right people that has the right product and market opportunity. Like, those things need to be a given. Leadership is something that I've been focused on more and more as I've gotten more mature. And then you got to figure out how to carve out what your role is. And I did this in every single company that I worked for, that they hired me to do something. And then within the first 6 months, often 3, based on talking to customers, looking at business data, understanding where the opportunities are, talking to the people inside of the company, I didn't change my job title, but the things that I were doing and my goals were completely different than what they had set for me initially. And so that's a recommendation for people that want to grow quickly, especially at any level. But I think the growth trajectory happens a lot if you're at like around the manager level inside of these size companies, is to tell your boss what you should be doing, not the other way around, and make sure that you have the boss that trusts in you and believes in your skills.
I would add there too, like, I was a very ambitious 24-year-old wanting to like grow my career super quickly. And I would tell myself to like have more patience. And I think I had an interesting early career trajectory where like my first job, like real job out of college, was at an ed tech company, and I did the same job for 7 years. I was an account manager. And at the time, I was impatient. I was frustrated. I was like mad. I wasn't getting promoted. I was doing a good job. I was like, what is it going to take for me to, move in my career? But in hindsight, I spent 7 years mastering a craft. And I went so deep on that particular function that when I ended up at my next place, actually just as a customer support agent back on the phones, early startup days at ZocDoc, I knew they needed a post-sale team. And I was like, I can build this. I'm like, I did this job for 7 years. Like, I know what needs to be done. And I had the opportunity to do it. And so when I was in that phase, I was frustrated. I was impatient. I thought I was like in a dead end job and not going anywhere. But in hindsight, I'm so glad that I did that. And so having the patience and the commitment and the dedication to just learning, you don't know everything about your craft after 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4, you don't. Like I learn new stuff every single year. So I definitely wish I could tell myself that, because I feel like if I had a different mindset, I could have probably even made better use of that time and opportunity. So just to add that to the mix.
I echo that. At the company where I figured all these things out, I was at that company for about 26 months. And at around 12 months, I wanted to leave. And if I had left that job, we definitely wouldn't be here right now. And I wouldn't have seen all of the things that needed to see through in order to really understand what was going on. And so I echo that, especially at the beginning, optimize for learning. There's a ton of people out there that optimize for money and title when they're 27, and depending on what you want, that can work for you. But long term, if you have like ambitions to do something really strong, whether it's on your own or at a large company, people hire for skills, and skills require learning and doing for a long period of time.
Enjoy the ride. Life is good when you're 24.
Yeah, it's very fun. You definitely that was 100% exactly what I wanted to hear. So thank you for that. Yeah, my new role is great. My new boss is like so good, but I was really struck. Sorry, I don't want to go on too long, but he hired me as a growth hacker, and then I came on, and he like wasn't letting me on Webflow, wasn't letting me into like the stuff. He was hiding all the Python and was putting me on social, and I was like, oh, I thought this guy wanted me to be doing like code monkey work. He wanted me to be doing strategy, and I was like, oh my god, am I going to become T-shaped enough? But it's okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great questions, Charlie. I think they were perfect for this episode too. All right, we have a few more coming in for various reasons. A few of these folks can't come on and ask, so I'm going to ask a few questions on behalf of some folks. So this is actually going back to a comment you made. Helena was asking, Chris, you mentioned that Salesforce is more info for marketing than Marketo. What is it in Salesforce that you look at for marketing specifically? Can you expand on that point?
What types of marketing are driving actual business results is what matters. And so Marketo is only going to give you the contact before it gets pushed into Salesforce. There's no sync that's happening back from Salesforce to say, these are the people that became customers. These are the people that never made it to a meeting. These are the people that their sales cycles took 900 days and our average sales cycle is 250. You're not going to see those things. And so if you're a marketer and you're trying to get more budget, deliver on things that matter to your business, there's a ton of different things. You need to connect your work to actual business outcomes, which is pipeline and revenue. And you should be able to do that. It also is the only way that you'll make good decisions about what marketing to do. There's a ton of marketers that fly blind and never see those things and are not able to make good decisions and only see leads that they generate, or the number, or the job title in the company, which by the way is not enough. I've been definitely specifying this more. There's 2 parts of intent. It's firmographically, do they look good? Do they have the right titles? It's easy to do that. it's easy to go onto LinkedIn and get CIOs at 200 to 2,000 employee companies to download your gated content, to do something where they give you your email address. It's much more difficult to get that person to have actual buying intent and for them to buy your $200,000 software product. And so people look at just firmographics and they need to place a ton of priority on the actual intent of the buyer before they pass it to sales. And so what's happening over the past 10 years is that buyers have far more control over their process, and marketing is more responsible for the journey across a customer in a B2B environment. Everyone knows that. Everyone sees the stats about buyers are 80% done and But the actual marketing execution inside of a lot of companies is built on capturing a lead when they're 10% of the way done, when they're 0% of the way done, and then passing it to sales. And that's why that model doesn't work, is because it's misaligned with how a buyer wants to buy. They want to buy when they're ready to buy. They don't want to talk to your sales rep when they don't know nothing about your product. They don't want that demo. And companies structure their marketing to do those things to get people that are 0% of the way done, because they're doing marketing to a buyer journey that existed in 2008, not 2021. And that's where the disconnect is happening and why the model continues to get worse and worse. And so like, that's the game. That's why MQLs doesn't work. That's why like it's really that simple to me. And so in a marketing engine, just to get back onto your question, you must be able to, the first thing that I will do when I go into a company is go and look at where the revenue came from, which will then help me make better decisions about what to do next. It gives you all of the insight. And when I look at it, it's majority of the revenue came through with somebody that asked for a demo, aka asked to talk to a sales rep when they were ready to talk to a sales rep. And when you see that at 100 companies in a row for their marketing source revenue comes through that way, I just have started to optimize for only that conversion, because it has the shortest sales cycles, the highest win rates, the most revenue coming through, the most aligned with how buyers buy. Like, there's just so many reasons for that. And so I miss I forget all the stuff on the fringe, kind of back to David's question. It's like, forget SEO. It's also like, forget ebook downloads, forget mid-funnel stuff, forget your 9-step buyer journey, forget all of the things that you can't measure, forget trying to craft that, and then just do good marketing across for your customers, and then let them come when they're ready.
That was awesome. I have another good question for you. Seems like webinar registrations are declining even when content quality is high. How do you innovate on this format to keep it fresh?
It's interesting as a data point of one, our webinar registrations are not declining. And so it's one part. Is it more saturated? Absolutely. More people are doing them because they can't do they haven't been able to do trade shows for 12 months. And that was the primary source they got revenue. So they're trying to just find a different channel to do a similar thing so they can get leads to pass to their sales team. And so what people are frustrated with is the lack of the quality of content, the failure to produce that content and put it out in other channels where they can listen to it on their own, not the webinar recording that you send them where they have to put their email address in order to watch it when you already have their email. That doesn't go on a podcast, and that you have your sales reps follow up with them when they're clearly not interested in buying stuff. And so I'm not talking to whoever asked the question. I'm not talking to you specifically. It's just what I see across the market. It's a drop-in replacement for lead gen. And the way that a webinar works is by listening to people, making it interactive. Like this has been very useful for us. We've transitioned more and more to this format over time, which I think people value. And then putting out the content in places where people already consume so they can see the value that's delivered inside of the event, which then drives them to actually want to attend.
Awesome.
But I think the main reason that the webinars break down inside of companies like this is because of the mindset of what a webinar should be.
Okay, I have another anonymous question, and I'm going to talk through this with you. So The question starts, how would you go about the content and social plays that you guys recommend when your company already has a social media manager and a director of marketing comms that both don't really think in terms of demand gen? Specifically talking about podcast and content distribution on organic LinkedIn and organic channels. This person owns paid, so they're owning that, but basically how to collaborate with other people that you need within the organization to execute on like the organic podcast strategy when that's not fully within your control.
I think there's more than one route to get to where you want to go. And so I'll mention a couple. One, if you're managing paid, the easiest path in my view is to make paid work so good that people think that you're more credible and then do what you say. I think that's the easiest path. And so that would be the number one, run the playbook that we have on paid social, measure it to pipeline and revenue, communicate those things at a executive level, as in pipeline and revenue and customer acquisition cost and sales cycle length and cost per SQO, not at a marketing manager level of click-through rate and cost per click and cost per lead. Elevate to business metrics, which will then inevitably, if the stuff is working, get the attention and then allow you to people will just find you more credible when you make recommendations to organic social. That's one potential path. The next potential would be to try and, I think the next easiest path would be to try and send people examples of content that's happening in the way that you want, to show them what good looks like. I did that with a director of marketing when I was a marketing manager. I sent them content that other companies were doing outside of our space because nobody was doing that shit in med tech. And so I had to go to other examples of companies that I thought that he would trust and said, hey, look at this company. I know they make like fintech SaaS, but the product costs just as much. They're selling it to these types of companies. The sales cycle feels like it's about the same rate. Like this seems to be working for them on a podcast. Why couldn't we do this for emergency medicine physicians? So try and connect to a brand that they already like and that may be excited to emulate, and then show them what that company's doing. I think that's a really interesting strategy to get someone to buy in initially. And then your job is more on helping them execute their own idea. You're just showing them what looks good looks like. And hopefully if they like it, then they're like, oh, how should we, like, I don't even know where to get started on a podcast. What do I do? And I'm like, oh, like I've been listening to this podcast over here. It tells you exactly here's the episode of how we could start our podcast next week. And so those are a couple of recommendations. I'm sure that there's plenty more, but those are the couple ideas that come to mind.
Awesome. Hope that helps. If you have a follow-up, you can DM me and I can ask in a minute. There was a good question submitted in advance. They're not on the show now, but sort of along the lines of organic LinkedIn posting and personal branding. Mm-hmm. So this person actually owns both sales and marketing at a mid-size product development company and is thinking about how they want to go about building their personal brand. They're confused though about what direction they should take. Should they post about sales? Should they post about marketing? Should they post about the services or the content that tie back to the company and what they sell? He's worried that if he chooses that last option, he is going to run out of ideas and is not really sure that's the right way to go. But he's also worried about taking the path of sales or marketing because there's a lot of content creators on LinkedIn that focus on those topics. Mm-hmm. And so he's sort of his inability to pick a path is causing him not to get started. So he'd love your thoughts on what you think, and hopefully we can get him unstuck and going.
Again, I tell this to a lot of people, like there were a lot of marketing podcasts out there before we ever thought about starting this. Good content wins. You don't need to be first, and you don't need to have the podcast that has 10 million listeners in order for it to make an impact for your life or your company or whatever you want. And so that's the first step, is like, stop thinking about the quote unquote competition and just do the things that you want to do. Like, and just work on whatever you're trying to do, work on trying to get better at doing that, put things out, understand how people respond, and then just work on your craft. Just like how the talk that I had at the beginning and the video that was on, and how bad it was, frankly, and just work on getting the craft better. And hopefully in a year, we're in a better place than we were right now. Whether it's in terms of information quality, whether it's in terms of how we innovate on the event, whether it's in production quality, whatever, like hopefully we get better over time. That's just a note. I've changed I don't know if it changed is the right word, but I have a more clear stance on how to handle this now. And it's odd because this is how I did it in 2016, but hadn't really connected the dots. And so my feeling on this is, if you're going to do things for your company and you don't have a significant financial stake in that company, then you should be executing under the company's brand. So anything that's like, our products, our stuff, our case studies, our podcast that we interview people that do product development, push that under the company's brand. It gives you a great opportunity to how to learn how to build a podcast, how to learn how to put out content, how to run a company page, how to do all of those things, and then focus your own profile on what you want to build, and you only decide that. And so getting stuck, like if I had initially built my entire like audience around medical device, it would have not helped me right now. You know what I mean? And so I do believe that's the right path for people. Justin Welsh said that in an event that we did together 13 months ago now. And I heard him, but it didn't necessarily fully click for me. And now I do believe in he was talking about, talk about what your expertise is going to be on your company thing. Don't tie your personal LinkedIn profile to your specific company. And I was thinking, oh, well, you should do a podcast and put it through your company page with your buyers. And I actually have changed my mind on that now. And so run company stuff through the company page. You can still be the host of the podcast. You can still be the face of the videos, but run that stuff through. And then if you want to have some of the videos that you're doing about your podcast go on your personal, then go for it. But if you only want to talk about cooking and your, sales skills, then just talk about what you want on your personal one. That's my recommendation.
I'll throw something in here. Curious what you think about this too, Chris. Because I've definitely gone through this in my own journey of posting stuff on LinkedIn too. I do think there's a ton of benefit of picking a lane and staying in the lane. But if you're just getting started and you're really not sure, I actually think it's okay to test and experiment with a few different topics. Like over the course of my posting on LinkedIn since early 2019, I initially focused a lot on customer success. I then started talking a little bit more about sales. I've more recently gotten into leadership and personal development themes. Over the course of time, I'm talking about the things that are mattering to me at that time and the things that I'm investing my personal time in learning and developing. And so, and I also find as I was trying a few of these different paths, it was helping me clarify, I don't know if that path is working for me anymore. And this seems to be pulling me in this direction. So I also think if you really are just getting started, there's no harm in trying a couple different paths to just kind of see what type of content resonates, what you enjoy creating. And you can always evolve it from there. Mm-hmm. If you make a choice to go down one path and you find that that's not working for you anymore, or your career takes a little bit of a pivot, that's okay. It can evolve. Even Justin, right? His content focus has evolved when he started posting to what it is today, right? Mm-hmm. So I think just recognizing that and not needing a clear decision before you start, acknowledging mm-hmm. that starting will help you get to your decision faster, potentially.
Absolutely.
So hopefully that inspires you. Start posting on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. So, all right. I've got a great question from Anna. She is in the car with the kids, so I need to also ask this on her behalf. And it's really about what's next for Refine Labs and DGL over the next year. What are your top goals? What's something new you're cooking up? Just kind of asking in general how you're thinking about the future over the next year or so.
Yeah, it's a really great question. So some of the things that we're focused on right now is getting very good at our craft and eliminating the things that are not providing value so that we can focus on the things that provide the most value to our customers and generate results. That's the first part. The next part of that is actually moving into, I think, potentially phase 2 of Refine Labs, which is far more focused on marketing innovation than running a general agency. And so I see in the future, and I have seen this quite a bit right now. A lot of people have seen me talk about this, is that for a variety of reasons, companies restrict innovation inside of their own company for marketing. The CEO doesn't believe in Facebook. We're only going to give this a week to work. How are we going to measure it? We need 1 million MQLs. You don't have any budget. The person is scared to take a risk because they're afraid of what their coworkers are going to think if they're trying to sell B2B products on TikTok. Who knows what they are? But I think that long term, and we talked about this a couple episodes ago, I think that companies will find a way for somebody else to vet innovation and then transfer the IP to them so that they already know something that's working, and the person that's giving them the IP is not a MarTech vendor or an analyst firm. I think that there's something there that we're going to continue to explore. And so it would have us be restructuring essentially the core of what we do, in a way that we have a core mix of things that we know are working, which we have. We do this. We just don't message or position this way. We have a core set of things that we know work, that we're going to continue to try and scale up and continue to make work better, and then create a lot of space for all of the really talented, smart, incredible people that we have here to go and do a lot more innovation that then creates experiments inside of one company. That experiment's successful. It then gets rolled out across 50 other companies and validated, and then gets, once validated, be able to roll into our core mix and potentially get somehow that IP transferred into a lot of other companies over time. And so that's a potential vision that I'm exploring. Are we there right now? No. It's something that I'm interested in working towards? Absolutely. Another thing that we're always doing is we're looking to have the best people here. So in order to continue to grow and see some of those things come to life, we're going to need more really talented, motivated, great attitudes types of people, and demand marketers, and a lot of other supporting functions as we continue to grow. So those are two things. And then the third thing that I think that we will do is figure out a way to package and deliver all of the organic marketing that we do and provide that to companies in a way that's more comprehensive and better packaged than the way that we do it right now through a podcast that doesn't get archived in a good way, and it's tough to find things. And so if a company wanted to do our live event strategy with an influencer in their thing, we know how to do it. We've done it. If they wanted to do a podcast or a live Zoom or different things like that, like, we could show them exactly how to do it in a way that's not like our current high touch consulting model. So those are a couple of the angles that we're looking at, but in general, it's continuing to deliver better results to essentially be farther and farther ahead of all of our quote unquote competitors. And when we have 30 people, right, 20, 30 people right now working on 20 to 30 B2B SaaS companies, the learnings compound. And so we are able to learn a lot faster than you would ever be able to replicate inside of a company. And so like what competitive advantage does that provide long term is something that I'm really interested in, because a lot of companies like mine are just focused on recycling the same thing that they've been doing and figure out how to make it more profitable. That's not what I'm interested in doing. And so consistently getting better in our offering to basically pave the way for how companies do demand gen in the future. I think that the current system of serious decisions demand waterfall driven into companies with tech vendors that pay those types of firms to tell people how to do marketing, that tell executives executives actually pay those companies to tell them how to do marketing. And then the technology firms, MarTech firms, also pay those companies to tell the executives how to do marketing. So they're taking money from both sides. And I don't believe the advice is really strong. And there is a ton of money on the line for very large companies that have their strategy driven in that way. And that model is positioned to be completely destroyed. And that's what I want to do. It's probably not going to happen this year, but that's what I want to do.
I think also, like, as you were telling the story at the beginning of this show of how you got here, it probably would have been really, you probably would not have been able to predict where you are now today a year ago, right? And I think what's really exciting, and I've been at companies that are going to be kind of moving from the stage that we're at now to the stage that we're going to get to. And what's super exciting is I bet all those things that you said are going to happen in some form or fashion. And then I think that we're going to have a couple of things that are going to happen by intuition, by happenstance, something we discover, serendipity, whatever you want to call it. And we never would have been able to predict it. So what I'm really excited about is, like, a year from now, what are those things that we stumble into that just happen as a result of moving forward? Mm-hmm. We'll definitely have one or two, I'm sure of it.
We'll see. One thing that I've been doing, this is more just potentially oversharing, but I'll tell it to people. One thing that I've been doing on my birthday is I write a letter to myself as if I had just turned the next year. And then I am able to look back on that letter and be like, wow, you're way farther than what you thought you were going to be.
Yeah.
Or, and wow, you had no idea all those different things were going to happen. And so, and wow, that plan really sucked. So that's something that I've been doing it for a couple of years. I think it's fun if people want to take that and give it a shot. You could even break it down so it's more tangible. You could do it once a month or whatever you want. It might be an interesting thing to think about.
Huge fan of journaling. Love that idea. We've tapped out the questions. It's been an awesome show.
Yeah, we don't need to set the longest episode record here tonight. This has been awesome. Really appreciate all of you joining, all the people that stuck around through this whole 90 minutes. Love the stories that got shared at the beginning. Like, Matthews, you're if I listen to it again, I might cry. So like, I'm just really happy for you taking that information and just creating a better life for yourself, right? Like, for anyone out there, it's not only demand gen, it's for anyone out there. Like, the information for what you want to do is there somewhere. You just need to find it and then act on it, and then have a commitment and work hard to do that. And so I love hearing those stories. I get a ton of them in LinkedIn DM. I've started to screenshot every one of them. There was an interesting comment. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but there was something that I was talking about where somebody was like, they asked me a question, because I think my thing was about attribution today. And they asked a question of like, how do you measure the impact of brand, or how do you convince the executives at the company about brand? And I said something I had never said before, which is I would screenshot every single thing that people are saying about the content, or the things that they've done and been more successful, or the good things they're saying about what we're doing. And I would put that in, and I would start to send that to executives every day. And so just by getting direct feedback from people that may not be your customer, but may not be your customer either, and that they're having successful and they really appreciate the things that you're doing, and then sending those to executives as a qualitative measurement of brand. I talk a lot about that executives don't see those things because they're not in the details enough to see a lot of that information. And so it's our job to actually elevate that. So that's one. And the second thing that's not way more important, the second thing that's important is inbound pipeline growth. Inbound pipeline and revenue growth is the other measure of brand in my view. Sorry, I just got on that tangent. I wanted to get that in there. Let's get to closing out again. So, yeah, it's been an awesome year. I look forward to doing it for. Do I dare commit to a whole nother year? I mean, we might change the time slot. Who knows? But I love doing this stuff, and so we're adding different pillars for those that might want to attend. I'm doing one with Dave on Thursday at 12 p.m. I think we have over 500-600 people registered right now. It caps at 1,000. And so we're going to go through another round of promotion on LinkedIn and that stuff. So I expect that will fill. And so if you want to get involved in that, maybe before we hop off here, Megan or someone else can drop the link in the chat. I'm sure you all are on the emails. It's on the email that went out today as well. And so, yeah, just looking forward to continuing this ride with you. And
drop in the link in the chat, register for the Dave event. It's going to be great.
Get on it quick because this Zoom's getting closed soon. So if you want to click it, click it shortly.
We'll send a reminder email tomorrow, but it's going to be an awesome session. It was great to see you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Matthew, Charlie, Carl, for sharing your stories, for all of you guys for coming on for questions, for everyone that comes every Tuesday night to hang with us. This wouldn't be the same without each and every one of you. So thank you, everyone. Happy anniversary to everyone.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
See you next week.
See you next week. Bye.